And good evening, everyone. This is our first chance to be together one-on-one since the election. So I wanted to begin tonight with an acknowledgement of our new reality. Millions of Americans woke up Tuesday morning full of hope and joy, anticipating the election, finally, of America's first woman president. They put their faith in Vice President Kamala Harris to deliver not just the star-studded joy and the power of the culture from Beyonce to Taylor to basically every star in Hollywood, plus the many memes and incredible digital content, but also the change that could make this multicultural democracy real and accessible and affordable to everyone. I mean, money for elder care and small businesses and child tax credits, what? But that is obviously not what happened. Instead, knowing all that we know about Donald Trump, his vulgarity and venality, his 34 felony counts and adjudicated sexual abuse of E. Jean Carroll, and so many other women he preyed on, his buddy-buddy relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, his theft of classified documents, his fealty to Vladimir Putin, and that attempted coup. Despite all of that, a majority of American voters actively chose him over her. Women all over this country know what it feels like to be the far more qualified woman who loses the job to mediocre or underqualified men. Black women doubly so. And people are rightfully depressed and scared. The Republican Party has made it clear they're not mad at the whole Nazi thing. They actually find some of the ideas, mass deportation, internment camps, white Christian nationalism, to be kind of okay. And autocracy definitely feels imminent. This era is especially frightening if you're a woman or black or gay or bi or trans or in an immigrant or in a mixed status family. And that danger is not in your head. And even in a normal time, when an election goes sideways, it is tempting to feel kind of dumb for having ever believed that the change you dreamed of was possible at all. I mean, who were we to believe that America would ever elect a woman, let alone a black and Asian woman as its president? I mean, sure, Mexico just did it, but not us. We're America. We don't do these things. But it is not crazy or dumb to believe in the possibilities of America. Millions of people all around the world do too. My parents did. That's why they, like so many immigrants, including Kamala Harris's parents, came here to this crazy platypus of a country cobbled together by people from everywhere and with its tortured history, but also so much potential. It is not crazy to believe. It's not crazy to dream. In fact, it's kind of sad not to. And Kamala Harris lived up to our dreams. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. She ran a remarkable 107-day emergency campaign full of joy and hope. She and Tim Walz raised $1 billion in a couple of months, and she whipped Trump in their one and only debate. And yesterday, at her alma mater, Howard University, Kamala Harris, first of her name, did something Donald Trump would never do. She conceded graciously and vowed to conduct a peaceful transfer of power.
Now, I know folks are feeling and experiencing a range of emotions right now. I get it. But we must accept the results of this election. Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power.
Imagine that. She also spoke directly to young Americans who chose her at a rate of 54 to 43% over Donald Trump for 18 to 29-year-olds and 49 to 48% for voters 30 to 44, according to the NBC exit polls. And particularly millennial and Gen Z women who went 61-37 in her favor for 18 to 29-year-olds and 54-43 from age 30 to 44. Millions of college students, recent graduates, and young Americans who put their faith in her.
Sometimes the fight takes a while. That doesn't mean we won't win. That doesn't mean we won't win. The important thing is don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop trying to make the world a better place. You have power. You have power.
And make no mistake, fam, it is young Americans, not those of us in Gen X or boomers or retired silent generation folks who are the economically insecure. Young Americans are the ones who can't afford to buy a home or start a business or a family. They are the ones who have economic anxiety, not the people of my generation, Gen X, many of whom have savings in the bank and bitch about the economy while planning overseas vacations. Yet it was the hip-hop and Hulk Hogan generation, the F your feelings latchkey kids who came up on Dynasty, Dallas, and The Apprentice, who were the lone age group that voted in a majority for Trump. A majority of Gen X voted to turn America into an autocracy and to condemn our kids and grandkids to a far-right Supreme Court, probably for the rest of their lives. And it was not just Gen X. Because while 91% of black women voted for Kamala Harris, 53% of white women overall voted for Trump, despite the open disrespect and demonization hurled by J.D. Vance and the Supreme Court stripping women's bodily autonomy, courtesy of Donald Trump, who closed his repulsive campaign by dropping the B word on Nancy Pelosi. The breakdown by education was stark. Harris won 57% of white women with college degrees and lost 63% of white women without them. It was also men. Trump won every age group of men, including 60% of Gen X men and 6 in 10 white men. Also Latino men, who, despite the utter disrespect shown by Trump and his promise to deport some of your mixed status families, most of them voted in a 55% majority to make the deportations happen. Y'all voted with Stephen Miller and David Duke and against your own sisters and chose Kamala Harris with 60% of their votes. So you own everything that happens to your mixed status families and to your wives, sisters, and abuelas from here on in. However, we only have so much time for blame. We now need to make a plan. Because Donald Trump's spokesperson has already confirmed that upon taking office at noon on January 20, 2025, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, he will begin the mass deportation of up to 11 million immigrants who are living and working in America. He plans to put Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in charge of at least parts of our health care, which could deprive millions of Americans of life-saving vaccines. And he and his people will implement Project 2025, something he pretended he didn't know anything about when he was lying to you on the campaign trail, when he wasn't, pretending to fillet a microphone or rambling for hours in front of sparse crowds. Cue the national abortion ban via the Comstock Act as well. And then there are the tariffs, which will make the price of everything soar, while he and Elon Musk grift money out of our economy to share with their fellow billionaire friends, while mainly Gen Z and millennial Americans and retirees feel the pain. So here we are. And what I can tell you is what I plan to do. And what I plan to do is to refuse to take the knee or be silent. Because when an autocracy begins to form, it is really important that the press, to the extent it can, continue to speak, continue to inform people about what is happening, and to give you the means and the strategies to resist and survive. It is important that civil society and the arts continue to speak, that individual citizens remain vigilant and not back down or cower in fear. So that is what I and the team here at The ReidOut are going to do. We will make sure you stay informed, forewarned, and equipped to survive whatever he and his MAGA cronies try to do to the people in this country.